went to see him, and said unto him, the Lord said, set your house in order.
Yes, sir.
For you shall surely die. Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed. Remember, Lord, I have served you faithfully and loyally. I've tried to do everything you wanted me to do. And he cried bitterly. Isaiah left the king. But before he could pass through the central courtyard of the palace, the Lord said unto him, go back
Yes, sir.
to Hezekiah
Come on, preacher.
and tell him that I, the Lord, the God of his ancestor David, I've heard his prayer. I've seen his tears, and I will heal him. And in 3 days he will go to the temple. I will add 15 years to his life. I will rescue him and this city, Jerusalem, from the emperor of Assyria. I will defend this city for the sake of my own honor and for the promise that I made to my servant David. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
And again, the whole church said,
Amen.
Amen.
something that we shall endeavor to use this morning with God's help and with your prayers. Prayer reaches from a distance.
Amen.
Prayer reaches from a distance. As it is our custom, we want you to look at your neighbor and let's say it together. Come on. Prayer reaches from a distance. Amen. We ought to be glad about that. Is that right?
Come on now.
Prayer is like AT&T. Amen. It'll reach out from a distance. Prayer goes a long ways.
Amen.
And prayer is just simple talk with God. You don't have to have a whole lot of big words or big vocabulary. Amen. God knows what's on your heart and what's on your mind, even if you can't say it.
Come on now.
God is able to read our hearts and read our mind. Man look on the outside, but God looketh at the heart.
Come on now.
Prayer reaches from a distance. I'm excited about this text with Hezekiah. For Hezekiah was a man who lived a devoted life to prayer.
Come on now.
Hezekiah knew how to talk with God. But not only that, Hezekiah was a religious man. And there was no other king before him or after him that was like him in terms of his faith to God. Hezekiah, when he came to rule over Judea, we found that Judea was in a nervous wreck. It was a good city, but in a bad fix. They were wrecked emotionally, spiritually, and they were wrecked economically. But when Hezekiah became king, he declared one day, he said, in this city we will serve God. And all of the idol gods that will worship will destroy. And so what I like about Hezekiah is that Hezekiah had faith in God. Hezekiah believed that God would do exactly what he said he would do.
Amen.
How many know that God is a faithful God?
Amen.
How many know that God is a man of his word?
Yeah.
He'll do exactly what he said he would do. And the great miracle in this text to me is not so much of the fact that that Hezekiah was healed, but the great miracle in the text for me is that Hezekiah learned something that the world does not know. For the world said tomorrow is not promised.
Come on, preacher.
Have you heard that before?
Yes, sir.
They say live today, tomorrow is not promised.
Yeah.
But with God, all y'all won't hear me. I say with God, God can promise you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
God can promise you the day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
God can promise you next week. God can promise you next month. God can promise you years and years down the road. Am I right about it?
Yes, sir.
Hezekiah learned that. Woo, with God, tomorrow is promised.
Yes, sir.
And then we learn here that God is still in the miracle working business.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I need a miracle in my life.
Come on now.
I got some stuff going on. I ain't gonna tell you about it. Amen. You know how you Christians are. Y'all get on the phone. Y'all gonna tell somebody. Is that right?
Come on.
But I need a miracle in my life.
Come on, preacher.
I'm glad God's still working in the miracle.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody else in here who needs a miracle? Amen. I can't fix it myself. My doctor can't fix it. The lawyer can't fix it. I need a miracle. I'm looking for a miracle.
Yes, sir.
I'm praying for a miracle.
Yes, sir.
I'm hoping for a miracle.
Yes, sir.
I'm wishing for a miracle.
Come on.
I need a miracle, and I need one right away.
Yes, sir. Right
And
now.
I'm glad that I serve a God
Uh-huh.
who's in the miracle working business.
Yeah.
And if he did it way back then, he'll do it again for you and me today. Prayer reaches from a distance. Hezekiah prayed way down here on earth.
Uh-huh.
And his prayers reached the ears of God in heaven.
Yes, sir.
I tell you, prayer reached from a distance, is that right?
Yes, sir.
From earth to heaven, amen, 93 million miles. Tell me that prayer will reach from a distance. You
Come on
can
now.
pray for your loved one right here in Richmond,
Yes, sir.
in Freemantown. And they can be somewhere in Canada. They can be in Baalbek, Africa. Amen. They can be in Australia. And the prayer that you pray right here in Richmond will reach way over there.
Yes, sir.
It'll heal them. It'll save them. It will deliver them. It will set them free. Prayer reaches from a distance. Notice here now 3 things. Simple things I want to talk with you about this morning.
Come on now.
1, tell God all about it.
Yes, sir.
I say, tell God all about it. I don't know about you, but there's some things I want to talk with God about. There's some things you can't talk with everybody about. Have I got a witness?
Come on now.
Amen. But you can tell God exactly what it is that you are experiencing, your ups, your downs, your trials, your tribulation, your good days, your bad days, your situations, circumstances, and conditions. You can tell God exactly what you are dealing with.
Yes, sir.
Have I got a witness right
Come
now?
on, preacher.
And see, the reason, some people say, well, I don't want to dump all that on him. I want you to know, baby, he can handle it. You say, he just said, throw it on me. I know he said it in his word. He said, cast all of your burdens upon him because he cares for you. And isn't it good to know that somebody cares?
Yes, sir.
And we can tell him all about it.
Yeah.
You don't have to hold back.
Come on, preacher.
Some songwriter said, just a little talk with Jesus will make everything all right. And then I like the other one that said, oh, what needless things we bear. All because we what? Do not carry everything. Not just some things, everything to who? God in prayer. And then secondly, God is a prayer answering God. God is a prayer answering God. Is there anybody who know God will answer your prayer?
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Amen.
When you called on him in the hospital, didn't he answer?
Yes, sir.
Amen. When you needed him in your home, didn't he answer?
Yes, sir.
When you didn't know which way to turn, didn't he answer?
Yes, sir.
And say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. God is a prayer answering God.
Yes, he is.
I'm glad I serve an on-time God. He may not come when you want him. I said, but he's always. I said, he's always. He's always on. God is coming. All you got to do is wait on him. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength and mount with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, walk and not faint. And then thirdly, God will bless you with the blessings you stand in need of. Amen. How many know it to be true? Aren't you blessed? Just look back over the years from where you came from. Oh, I can remember the times I didn't have a dime. I remember the times I could stand on a dime and tell you whether it was heads or tails. That means I ain't have no soul on my feet. Isn't that right? Yeah, y'all don't know nothing about that. Amen. Amen. God has brought us from a mighty long way.
Yes, sir.
And I'm glad about it. I'm glad about what God has done, not only for me, but for you and for our ancestors. We've come a mighty long way.
Come on, preacher.
God is in that blessing business, isn't he?
Amen.
Amen. And you know, I like how he blessed. And you don't have to have a whole lot to be blessed.
Amen.
If you got bread and water,
Yes, sir.
children, don't you know you're blessed?
Amen.
If you can open your eyes in the morning, don't you know you're blessed? If you can walk and have a reasonable portion of your health and strength, don't you know you're blessed? If you can tell the Lord, thank you, you are blessed this morning.
Yes.
Woo! I thank God that I'm blessed. Amen. You know, I ain't choice about how he blessed me. Any way the Lord blessed me, I'm going to be satisfied. And then he told us that he's in the blessing business, didn't he? He said, I'll open up my windows of heaven and I'll pour you out a blessing.
Yes, sir.
And there won't be room enough to receive it. In other words, God can bless you so well that folk won't know you.
Come on now.
Isn't that right about it?
Come on, preacher.
Amen. God will bless you so well. Amen. It'll even surprise you. Amen. He said there will not be room enough to receive all the blessings that God has in store for you. Prayer reaches from a distance. Now, Hezekiah was sick to the point of death.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes sickness can lead to death.
Uh-huh.
Am I right about it?
Come on, preacher.
But it don't always have to be that way.
Yes, sir.
Amen. Some folk that we went to the hospital to see that was sick, and we kind of shook our head, they outlived us. Y'all hear me? Amen.
Come on now.
All sickness is not unto death. Is that right? God has the last say.
Uh-huh.
Have I got a witness right here?
Come on, preacher.
But notice here, Hezekiah was sick and almost died, and he had a visitor. Amen. Sometimes folk will come to see you, and they don't always come up with good news.
Yeah.
When Isaiah came to see Hezekiah, he walked in the room and looked at him.
Yes, sir.
Looked at his condition and said, hey, what the Lord said.
Yes, sir.
I didn't say it, but the Lord said, you better get your house in order.
Come on, preacher.
Because you're going to leave here. You're going to die. Is that right?
Amen.
That ain't no good news. Is that right?
Come on now.
Yeah, man. Boy, that's enough to scare you. That'll make you pray.
Come on.
If you got a prayer, that ought to get your attention.
Yes, sir.
You're going to surely die. And you know what? Something happened. When you get bad news, this is what you do. Let me say it again. When you receive bad news, this is what you do. Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and began to pray. Now, pray when you get good news too. but also pray when you get bad news. Is that
Come
right?
on now.
We got to pray in season and out of season.
Yes, sir.
Pray all the time, in the good times and the bad times. Is that right?
Come on, preacher.
And I like that he turned his face to the wall and began to pray. And when he prayed, he told God all about it.
Yes, sir.
You ought to tell God all about
Yes,
it.
sir.
I said, you ought to tell God all about it. Here, King Hezekiah told God what he was going through. He reminded God of what he had done for him.
Yes, sir.
You know, every now and then, you have to throw a little thing in there to help God to remember
Yes, sir.
what you've done for him. Hezekiah said, Lord, remember. And that's what I want the Lord to do, just remember.
Yes,
Amen. Amen. Remember, I have served you faithfully. In other words, I'm working your vineyard, knowing that whatever was right, that you would surely pay.
Yes, sir.
I served you faithfully. I went out to the highways and edges and I compelled men to come into your house. I served you loyally. I told a dying world that yes, Jesus Christ lives and he lives today.
Come on now.
I've done everything that you wanted me to do. And then he began to cry to God. You know, sometimes it's all right to cry when you pray.
Yes, sir.
Amen. What we're going through here on earth will make you cry. Is that right? Amen. Sometimes, crying helps to get it out. Isn't that right? Amen. Crying is a reliever. And men, it's all right to cry. Isn't that right? Amen. Cry unto the Lord and let him know. Lord, it's hard on me. Jesus cried out, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
Father, 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 forgive them for they know not what they do. Every now and then you have to cry out. And notice here what happened. He prayed, he cried bitterly to the Lord, and then guess what? God heard him. I say God heard him.
Yes, sir.
God is a God who answers prayer. God hears you when you call, and he's going to answer your prayers. I don't know about you, church, but I'm going to keep on praying.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to keep on talking with
Come
God.
on, preacher.
Amen. He may act like he don't hear. Amen. But God hears every word we say. And then even when we can't get the words out, God understands our heart. And God yet speaks to us. And he's still moving on our behalf. Yes. And he prayed before Isaiah got out the courtyard. I just want you to see how fast God goes into action when you pray to him and call on him. It said, before Isaiah passed through the central palace of the courtyard, God said unto him, go back. Go back. Tell Hezekiah, the ruler of the Lord people, I have heard your prayer. I've seen your tears. You know, God has heard your prayers.
Yes, sir.
Nobody knows what you've been praying to God. And I want you to know this morning, God heard your prayer.
Yes, sir.
God heard your prayer for your husband. He heard the prayer for your family. He heard the prayer for your other loved ones. He heard you cry out and say, Lord, have mercy, please.
Yes, sir.
God has heard your prayer.
Have mercy.
God has seen your tears. This is the promise that God gave to Hezekiah. When you pray, God will make you a promise. Yeah. He said, tell him I will heal him. How many want to be healed today? How many know somebody? How many have somebody in the family that needs to be healed today? I will heal you. And then you'll be able to go to the temple and show the priest that you've been made brand new again.
Yes, sir.
I tell you, when the Lord heals you, you will heal. When the Lord fixes you, you will fix.
Yes, sir.
Ain't nobody do me like Jesus. Yes. Ain't nobody do me like the Lord. And then he says, I will extend 15 years to your life.
Hallelujah.
I don't know about you, but
Amen.
boy, if I could just be guaranteed another 15, oh, me and Mr. Griffin would have a party. Have I got a witness? We're going to go to the backstage, y'all. We're going to go to the, what is that called, silver spoon or a sloppy spoon?
Greasy spoon.
The greasy spoon. We're going there. 15 more years
Yes, sir.
to your life. When you pray, God can do it for you. Tomorrow, they say it's not promised, but with God, tomorrow is promised. 10 years of promise. 15 years of promise when you pray and know that God will answer. Hezekiah was healed. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, sir.
The servant, Isaiah told us his servant to take some salve made from a fig tree and put on his ball, and that's going to heal it. You know, every now and then you want a sign. Lord, show me a sign. Let me know you have done something for me. So Isaiah asked him, said, do you want the Lord to make the shadow move 10 steps forward from the staircase or 10 steps backwards? He said, make it move 10 steps backward. And the shadow moved 10 steps backward. And that let Hezekiah know the Lord was on his side.
Yes,
prayer reaches from a distance. Let's get a Lord a big round of applause. Come on, let's get a Lord.